Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Brandon from Propeller into the Wolff Den. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
Year is almost over. Is that the craziest thing or what?
It's crazy, but I'm definitely feeling it.
Yeah, excited for next year. I assume you are too. For the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give me give us a quick intro, and then we'll get into everything.
Sure. I'm Brandon Deroche. I'm the founder of Propeller. Propeller is at its core a digital marketing platform. We sit at the intersection of social impact and culture. Music being the main aspect of culture, but not the only aspect of culture that we work with. And we are essentially incentivizing fans to take action for causes. And we do that through different rewards and incentives that we have with different artists and people we partner with. And so anything from winning a trip to meet Justin Bieber in Paris for supporting racial justice to going to Bonnaroo in a tour bus for taking climate action, or something as simple as earning a pair of concert tickets in your city. We have all different ways we engage people and get them to take action for important causes.
That's a wide range with some awesome experiences. What does one have to do to get those? Like, how little does someone have to do, and how much does someone have to do? The type of effort.
Well, it depends on what the prize is, but I mean, a lot of what we do are sweepstakes. And so sweepstakes for us, we don't force people to donate. So almost all of our campaigns, there's other actions you can take to enter to win. So that could be anything from signing a petition to watching an awareness video to sharing content on social media. And, the more actions you're taking, the more you can increase your chances of winning. But ultimately, it's still at random. And so, you could sign one petition and potentially win a really big experience. And then we also, when it comes to earning rewards on the platform, that is where you have to do more, because everything you're doing on Propeller, you're earning points. And those points can be redeemed like currency if you have enough points saved up to just redeem a pair of concert tickets or what have you for other rewards we have on the site.
How did you get into this? I'm sure that you get asked that all the time, but it's
Yeah, I mean, I got interested in this type of work really from my time playing in a band. Right out of high school, I was touring the US and Europe, and going from city to city, and just really saw the opportunity that you have as an artist to use your platform for something good. And I got pretty fixated on that as just a general concept. And I didn't think my band was going to make it after a while. And so I quit the band and moved to Los Angeles and started trying to do this kind of work with more established artists that already had the fan bases. And I was at a social impact startup running their music program for a few years. I went to a music management company and I was doing digital marketing there. And then eventually the band Incubus asked me to come run their charitable foundation. And in 2015, we built a prototype of Propeller, and the band was kind enough to let us pilot that prototype on their tour that year. And it went very well. And we decided, we think we have something here, so we're going to keep pursuing this. We built out the platform further, and we've really been up and running ever since that time.
That's a pretty good story. What was the band name? What did you play, and what kind of music?
Oh God. Well, so just to give some context, this was between 2002 and 2008 that I was in the band, and the band was called The Underwater. We were, I guess, alternative indie rock, and I played guitar in the band.
Okay, very cool. And you, as you're playing, you just realized, how does one? It's another interesting conversation. I don't want to go too far down there, but how do you know when it's time to move on? And that's different for everyone, because success as a band there's so many different levels of it. People could play their whole lives till they're 60, and they could feel like, all right, we got paid to play and it was good, and then there's success. How did you? Is it something that just happened, or you started thinking and then the time came?
I think that it was a weird time to be in music because it was just, Napster and all of that, like 1999, 2000. But before that, there was such a draw to be on a major label for at least a lot of people, a lot of artists. And we were definitely chasing like the major label sort of world. And we were talking to all kinds of labels. We had done development deals, and but no one gave us a record deal. And but we were talking to them for years, basically the whole time I was in the band. And I think we reached a point at some point along the way where we're like, let's not pursue that. Let's have fun. Let's make the best music we can. Let's tour and do all the things that worked for us over the years versus like whatever the industry was telling us or people at labels. And but it became it was a time where like it was pre-streaming and people didn't really like, as an artist, it was hard to know what to do. You're combating illegal downloads and trying to sell CDs in a time when people weren't buying CDs as much and trying to make it somehow. And I think eventually I just got to the point where I didn't know if we were making some of the right decisions as a band from the career side of things, and it just felt like it kind of run its course. And I just, I decided not to go to college to play in this band, and it just felt like we're not progressing it the way I wanted. And it was a really hard decision to leave because I put my life into it and loved it. And I think just eventually just got more fixated on this idea. And like when I was in a van, sitting in a van, driving around the country, found my mind drifting towards this other concept more than it was about playing in the band any longer. And I think the more that pursued, the more I realized like that's where I wanted to go, and the path I wanted to follow from there.
Is anyone still playing from that band?
Yeah, I mean, there was basically three of us that were in it pretty much the whole time. And then there was two others that were kind of a bit of a rotating cast over the years. But yeah, I mean, the one guy in the band that was in it the whole time, and he is more on the industry side these days. He still does a lot of producing and stuff, and he's been really successful with that and working with a lot of artists on more of the management side of things. I think probably the most notable artist is my friend Matt Halpern, who was our drummer for a long time, who plays in a metal band called Periphery that does very well. And so he's gone on to be, have signature drums and be on the cover of drummer magazines and things like that, because he's a phenomenal drummer, and he's gotten the recognition since leaving the band through playing the Periphery and other things he's done.
Being in this band, how much did it help you towards what you eventually are doing now?
Well, that's a good question. I think that for me, in the time in the band, we never quote unquote made it, whatever that means in music today. But we worked with so many great people and got to know a lot of great people as far as different artists and managers and people in the industry. And when I was in the band, they didn't necessarily like, they tried to help, but it was just a strange time, and like whatever, if something didn't work, it wasn't like how those relationships ended up being the most fruitful. I think ended up being then when I was not in the band any longer and was starting to do the work around causes and so forth, where then I was able to work with a lot of the people that I became friends with and had those relationships with. And so it was very foundational for everything I did moving forward, as far as just knowing people in the industry. And also, I think just understanding more of how artists think. And I think that's been helpful for me, just having been in a band and now when we approach artists to work with us at Propeller, it I think I don't know if advantage is the right word, but it just feels like I have more of an understanding as to the thinking that goes on there and what they might be receptive to and be excited about, and what they would not want to do as well in their career, as far as any sort of campaigns we might run together.
Yeah, I would say probably there's advantage to it. The big thing for me in college was just life experience. So getting to tour on the road, I assume you hit a lot of the same lessons and learning what you like and don't like and what's right and wrong and all. Who knows? There's such a blurred line now that I want to get into. We'll get into that, all of that today. But you end up with Incubus. What's the difference between a charitable organization, a foundation, with these artists and what you're trying to, because it's different, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, Incubus was. It's more common today that artists have foundations, but they were pretty early. They started their foundation, I believe, in 2004, and there weren't many bands or artists that had foundations at that time. I think Linkin Park might have been shortly after, if I'm not mistaken. And they had their Music for Relief organization, which they did a lot with, but at the time it was less common, and it really just became a vehicle for them that they could use as a way to kind of funnel or channel all of their charitable efforts, because they were doing that already. And so it was a way to say, when people had requests, they want things the band to do, it just gave it more of a process. And so for them, it was a way to to build up these big pots of money through their tours and whatnot, and give grants to different things that they cared about. And so there's a difference between starting your own organization or your own nonprofit, like they did, versus working with something like Propeller, where you don't have to go through the paperwork and the whole process of upkeeping your own foundation or nonprofit. And nonprofit and foundation are kind of just, it's the same thing essentially at the end of the day. I mean, there are differences, but overall it's still a foundation is a nonprofit. And when you work with Propeller, like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's really just a way to support things you care about, but it's a lot less rigorous than going and actually having to start your own organization.
I guess maybe the question is there a difference between activism and charitable, being charitable? In my eyes, it feels like there is. So what you guys are doing, the purpose, the actions, the idea behind it is a little bit different than, say, was it Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, who champions for mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a blurred line on what activism could mean to somebody, and but I think that the way I think of it is that a lot of times when people think of charity, they think of like the small organization, and it's more traditional as far as there's not a political aspect to it. It's anything from a cancer organization to homelessness, and it's very much about fundraising. And when I think of activism, fundraising is a piece of it. Like, the organizations still need money to fuel their efforts, but it's much more about these movements, and there's all kinds of things that someone can do as far as how they can be active and champion a cause that might have nothing to do with fundraising. Showing up to a rally and registering to vote and showing up to vote and signing petitions and all these different things. And so when I think of what we're doing at Propeller, it's a lot less traditional charity and philanthropy, and a lot more on the side of activism and people taking action.
I get change.org emails all the time. These petitions, do they do anything? I mean, some of them seem kind of ridiculous. Not the cause, just like, hey, we got 10,000 signatures that says blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, now what?
I mean, yes, like, petitions do work, and it just depends on what they're for. And sometimes it can be that, if you get a certain number of signatures, it could actually be enough to sway something that, like, maybe it's all relative as far as it being on a local level, or change.org, like, anyone can start a petition. So that petition really could be for anything. It could be silly. It could be, just depends. And then petitions are also just great awareness tools around what an issue is, and gives people a time to kind of stop and think and read through what this petition was started for. And those petitions ultimately will get delivered to somebody, as far as whatever the target might be. If it's a politician or a business, you can petition anything you want. And it's not a magic formula where, like, in most instances where it's, X number of petitions leads to Y. But if you're a politician, you can see that, okay, 100,000 people supported this petition, and that means that people seem to be siding with this particular issue. And so I'm going to consider that when I'm thinking about what I'm doing and what my platform is, that I'm going to be running on, and the things I'm going to be looking to implement as far as changes and the policies that I'm proposing as well.
Lizzo had a great speech. She gave her time at the People's Choice Awards to support a ton of other people who are you know, trying to make change and make the world a better place. But not everybody wants to do that. We see that now. We've seen it. We don't need to go into all, but even just in the music world, or sports world, not everybody cares about stuff. Do you have an idea of the people who do, or do you run into a lot of we don't really care about that, or as you dig deeper, you're trying to find out? It's important also who you hitch to, because you know if it turns out that they kind of weren't who you thought they were, and were a certain way, that hurts the cause, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been doing this kind of work for 14 years, and so if there's artists that have been around for a while, like I know what a lot of artists care about. And then there's new artists that coming up that I may have not known about the artist last week or whatever it is, and then you find out they are really, it's been interesting for me to see a shift since I started doing this work after leaving the band. It was 2008. And, I mentioned like some artists had foundations and it was starting to become more of a thing, but it was still really early as far as like Obama just had taken office and, change was in the air. There's a lot of people starting to think more about it. And Pepsi, the one year, I think it was 2009, instead of advertising the Super Bowl, they did this whole Pepsi challenge where they, I forget what the number was, it's been so long, but they gave millions of dollars away, and it was this whole voting thing. It just became more of like, both as far as artists and influencers, as well as corporations starting, where it was becoming more normal that everyone had a cause. And so we see it now sometimes where like we'll get a press release from a new artist and it's part of their bio that they, what they stand for. It's becoming more of a part of the ethos of, and for lack of a better word, the brand of an artist, to have a cause that they care about. So yeah, I mean, we really value authenticity. Like we find in our campaigns, the more authentic an artist is about their cause, the better it performs. And we can, I think a lot of times the fans can tell, like if it's something where the social media team of an artist is posting about something versus it coming from the artist directly. And in those instances, we've seen artists that are not these global superstars, but they might be significantly smaller in size as far as social media and how many people they're playing to it on their tours, make almost or more of an impact than some mega artist, just because it is really authentic and they really do a lot to champion it. So that's actually been something for us that's been really exciting, is just to be able to find these artists that are not going out. Like Lizzo's amazing, by the way, like, and we got to work with her this year, and she was an example of a superstar that did the work and was truly behind it herself, and it's such a rare thing to see that. But like I was saying, seeing some smaller artists that are not the Lizzos of the world still be able to make a major impact is really exciting, and something that aligns with a lot of what we do often.
Well, yeah, authenticity. It's big for me, being genuine about it. But it's just smart. It's just smart business to do certain things as a athlete, as a musician, and try and help. And people do it behind the scenes, and some people don't want to take a stand at all. They're kind of worried about it. I love a lot of country music, and there was a lot of stuff going on. I guess Luke Combs brought up DeSantis because he was at a concert in Jacksonville. And this is just you personally, can you put aside certain things and just say, I enjoy this person's music, I enjoy this person's movies, I want to root for them as an athlete, you personally?
I can, yeah, I definitely can. I mean, if they're a terrible human, it's hard. But if they're on a different side of the political aisle or something, like that's fine, as long as they're still a good person in my book. It's I don't.
That's a weird, like, we don't, what makes it, what's a good person, who's not a good person. I mean, that's the tough thing about it. And we don't really know who these people are, and it's music. So I'd like to say I can, like Kid Rock to me is on the other side of where I am. I went to his concert. I had a good time.
Yeah.
And me not doing anything is not going to harm his music career.
Yeah, I think if it doesn't come from a place of hate and I don't know, so much of it just feels almost immature to me, like the way people act, not just the artists, but probably more the people in the comments and stuff. And a lot of those people in the comments are, I don't know, looking for attention or something. But yeah, I mean, I think like if they're good-hearted, they mean well. We don't have to agree on everything, and we're not necessarily going to change people's mind. I think a lot of what we're trying to do is give people the tools that if you do care about something and it aligns with the causes we have on our site, that we make it easy for you to get involved and support them. But we know that we're not necessarily going to change people's mind, because that change, while it could happen, it might take a very long time for that to happen, if it ever does, in terms of someone's political beliefs or things they have the hard line on as far as causes.
Speaking of change, is it easier to try and get the power and change who's making the decisions, or to have enough pressure and influence to have them make the change? I mean, that's a big thing in activism, I think, right now, isn't it? Because like we either have two choices. We can convince and pressure the people who are making decisions to get on the right side of history or do the right thing, or find someone who will and then get them out. Do you try and do both? Is there more energy that you think should be put towards one or the other?
Well, I think we really try and build movements. That's like part of our mission, and I think that that's kind of like what I was saying as far as like giving people easy ways that they can get involved. So, for example, there are so many young people that care about climate or LGBTQ rights or whatever, these different, a number of different issues, but that doesn't mean that they're not distracted. It doesn't mean that they're going out of their way to like seek out organizations and find what they can do to help them. And so we try and make it easy, and that's where like having sort of the incentive or the initial carrot of some sort of prize from an artist or someone that they care about gets them to come over and pay attention. And then it's organizing from there. They get on the list of, say, Planned Parenthood or whatever the organization is that we're working with, and can keep them informed and help building these movements. And so I don't know, to answer your question, it's hard to say, but I think that sort of that groundswell is really important, of getting people that do care about these issues to actually be part of the movement versus what we would say is more like sitting on the sidelines and, in theory care about it, but haven't actually done anything to take any steps and don't know where to begin. So yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know if that totally addresses your question, but that's a lot of how we think of it.
Is there a hierarchy of importance in movements from your point of view, from a company point of view? Are there certain things that feel like they're either a losing battle or a really uphill battle? I mean, how do you throw an attention to it? If someone comes to me and said, says, I want to do something. And maybe that's another good question. Do people come to that, I want to do something, or, hey, this is what I feel strongly about? So that was a couple of things.
It can be either for us. As far as what takes importance, it's so hard because there's so many causes that are urgent causes all the time. And so we kind of have, we break the site out into different, what we call cause verticals. They're just basically the different issue areas that we're focused on, basically 365. And those different issues for us are climate change, LGBTQ rights, racial justice, mental health. We're doing a lot now around psychedelics, and that's related to mental health, and it's also related to drug policy reform. But as far as, and the other big one for us is around reproductive rights. And so I see in certain instances where like there's so many people who care about climate and the environment, but when something like the Dobbs decision happens around abortion rights, like people are extremely fired up because it's very much in their face in the moment. And even though it's going to be a long battle to ultimately change it, again, now it's that one probably feels a lot more immediate to people, even if, you know, everyone's sounding the alarms about climate and the environment. And when something is that in people's face, it kind of tends to rise to the top. So I forget the second part of your question.
It's a good. I might have also.
Oh, as far as like what they care about.
Yeah. Do they
on the
come to you
website.
with something, or do you generally tell them?
It honestly goes both ways, and we find that both sort of the public or users as well as the artists, it's not always necessarily like a specific organization. It's an issue area, and so when we have these different verticals on our site, what we're doing is aggregating leading organizations and the most impactful actions and kind of putting them under one umbrella of that vertical. And so we like when an artist wants to come and is up for supporting the whole vertical because we've done the work in curating that. And again, it's less about one specific organization and really about the movement or the issue overall. And so we find that sometimes artists like are like us or me or whatever, where it's they see that they care about a lot of things, and so the campaign we run with them could be for multiple different causes, or like they might just decide to focus on one. But overall, they were pretty open on what that could be because it's hard to pick, you know. So they eventually maybe just choose one that felt right at the moment.
Yeah. The Brittany Griner situation that kind of hits a number of areas on what you guys believe in. It was such a polarizing issue for a number of reasons. You have someone who's not white, who's part of the LGBTQ, drugs, right? I mean, there's so many. These are all some things people have strong opinions on, and some things are just like how does anyone see this thing as something that's bad? I wrote a post about it. I've never done drugs in my life. I don't care if weed is legal or not, but it feels like going through that effort to bring her home. We need to do something about what's going on in the U.S. with the people who are in our prisons. And does the current events does that also propel what you guys are doing, or the energy you put into something that's already in motion?
Do you mean like if something is in the news and it's around an issue, like does that impact how we look at what we're doing overall?
Yeah, whether you already have something going on, and are you giving a bigger push to it, or maybe there's nothing to do once something's out there. It's kind of that's what it is. We don't really have to do it. Kind of does its own thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are working on these, the issues that I talked about, like they're issues that we're working on all the time around the year. But sometimes, the Supreme Court decision on Dobbs being a big one, like we were working on Lizzo's Juneteenth campaign earlier this year, and part of the Juneteenth campaign was Planned Parenthood. And that was before the Dobbs decision happened. And then while the campaign was up and running, that the Dobbs decision came down. And so we were already working on that with Lizzo, but it just kind of rose to the top. Lizzo made a pledge with Live Nation to they basically matched each 500 grand to pledge to abortion organizations, local abortion groups. Or actually, it was to Planned Parenthood. And so in that instance, it was a cause that we had a big artist, a big campaign going, and then this big thing happened in the news that everyone was outraged, or at least people were outraged about. And so it ended up getting a ton of press, and it was just became this thing where that was a way that a lot of people took action, was because we had this big artist with this megaphone that was saying, you can go here and here's something you could do about it. And so in those instances, it happens. I mean, it's really hard to do what we would call direct response when there's a emergency or disaster or something like that, because the news cycle moves so fast. Yeah. And so we've done things where it's a natural disaster or there's some other sort of thing that happened in the government, And even if we get artists on board within a week, or if it can be too late if it's not like the same day or the next day, because people just move on so quickly. You see it all the time with, if there's a school shooting or something like that, and people are, of course, extremely upset, and everyone's posting about gun violence and stuff. But then, 2 days later, it's like it's not even in the news, which is
I
really
mean,
sad. But it's the way things are today.
even Juneteenth is a good example. That was 2 years ago, and it was like a huge issue, and didn't hear a whole lot in the last year or so. I know, did they make it a national holiday?
Yeah, Juneteenth is, and I think I mean, if you're talking about around George Floyd and all of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, I mean, yes, everyone, all these big companies were making pledges of all kinds of money they were going to be giving, and no one, I mean, it's hard to know how many people, like, where anything is at as far as the commitments that were made on those pledges, and all the work that people were saying they were going to do. It's really frustrating, and it's something that we hope to keep people's attention through our campaigns on these different issues. So it's not just at those moments of outrage, but those when those things happen, we can sustain attention on the causes for a longer period of time, and also would like to hold more people accountable to following through on their commitments.
Are more people not following through on a financial commitment or an action commitment?
I think it can be both, because I think it's like, oh, this is in the news, and everyone's talking about this. So what's our plan? What's our policies, and how do we handle it at our company or our festival or as a band or whatever it is? And so people do a lot of make efforts in those moments that I think from an optics perspective look really good. But then once that moment passes and everyone starts going back to their normal operations, who's really paying attention to see if they ended up, donating money to these organizations and whatnot? And there is a group called the Black Music Action Coalition. That's part of what they do is go and sort of try and hold these companies accountable that made these big commitments and maybe never did anything, and they'll give them a score and rate them basically as far as if they held up what they said they were going to do. But I think people go on with their lives and their businesses or whatever it is, and so it's something we can do as well when we are working with a big festival or an artist, and we can point to these things and say, this is something you said you care about, let's work it into your campaign and give you a way that you can continue championing that cause.
When you do a campaign, do you have any sense of an idea of how many people are active because they really care? How many people are active because it's Lizzo? And does it really matter?
Yeah, good question. I mean, we can see in our campaigns if if it's a big flyaway sweepstakes and someone's entering to win a trip to meet an artist or go to a festival or whatever it might be, what percentage of the people that are participating did they just take one action and like maybe just did that to enter to win, versus then the people that go through and take all kinds of different actions. And we see it in our campaigns where like with Justin Bieber's tour earlier this year, we partnered with his Justice World Tour, and it was all around racial justice. And we had the Martin Luther King Center was one of the organizations that was a part of it, and they had a 30-hour nonviolence training course and we had that as an action, and we got a lot of fans to go through this 30-hour nonviolence training course. And of course it's a small percentage of the overall that are in the campaign, but for us, like those kind of actions that are not easy to do and they're really meaningful, like we love to incentivize people to do those things. And we hope as well that even if you did come over just because you want to win something, that's what Propeller is doing. It starts with something simple, gets you in, and then you can go, and because you want to increase your chances of winning, you might watch an awareness video or take some of these different actions which provide education on the cause and why the artist wanted to support it, and ultimately bring you closer to knowing about a specific organization or the cause overall. and hopefully converts you into becoming an ongoing supporter of that organization or just the issue. So, and you're more informed through the process, but it's not everybody, but it certainly, we describe it as a gateway to activism. And we think that we're doing a pretty good job of getting people in for the first time, of taking any steps, of being active and getting them to think more about this in their daily lives.
Yeah. It's a good start. There's no downside to it, but again, there's always going to be people who just click this, take a few things to try and get entries to win an award, or, but
Totally.
so
Yeah.
good. I mean, it's just how can you measure this stuff? I mean, how can you make sure? Can you tweak the process, the experience, the rewards, the actions, all of that?
Totally. I mean, everything Propeller does is measurable. So all the actions that are taking place, like there's nothing on the honor system. It's like everything that someone is doing, it's either tracked natively through our platform, or we find a way to track it. Like if it's a volunteer opportunity, we're working with the organization who reports back to us who showed up, and then they might get credited with points for having done that. But no honor system, always measuring what's happening. And then we're always thinking about how to make it that it's harder and harder to try and game the system in any way, and how we can make create new action types that do provide more awareness, and makes it harder for it to be just clicking through something. And so, for just as an example, that we build an action type that we call a discover action. We're essentially like daisy chaining multiple actions together to make them one thing. And so if you think about it like with a petition, the first part of this discover action might be to watch a video about the petition, and you have to watch the whole video to advance. And then once you watch that whole video, you can go on and you can sign the petition. But you're not just going on and clicking the button. You had to actually go through and learn something about why you're going to sign this petition first. So just things like that as examples as to ways we can make it where we are trying the best we can, unless someone just plays a video at their computer and walks away, that they have more of it's more of a solution for getting them to stay engaged and have to actually get informed to be credited with any sort of points or reward.
I guess I want to touch on the Twitter thing right now. I see you guys have a Twitter account with a decent amount of following, and you have your Instagram. I guess what brings me this is the amount of times I see the word woke. I mean, what does that make you think and feel when you hear that word?
Personally, I try and provide a little bit of distance from that, just because the word's been so, I think, convoluted or polluted since what its original intention was, or where it might have started, and becomes this major talking point for the Fox News world. and so it has a very negative connotation. And I think if you think of what we're doing as being woke, it might repel people from what we're doing, versus it being actually something where they might actually care about these different causes and stuff. But if it just is quote unquote a woke cause, it's going to keep people away from actually participating or something. And so
4 or 5 years ago, that was good. It'd be good.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, I think like it's almost more of a detriment now to think of it like that. I mean, we're certainly supporting progressive causes, and a lot of what we do leans left, but it's I don't like using the word woke.
Anything too progressive? Anything too out there?
I think there's a line in everything, right? Because I don't think because you're on the right that like you're bad or even wrong in a lot of cases. But there's the extreme right and there's the extreme left, and I think like either direction can go too far. You know what I mean? And like, so I don't have a specific example, but I don't, and even if I align with a lot of left ideology or something, it's like there can be a point where I'm like, okay, that's a little farther than what I feel in some of these instances, and so there's definitely a line with all of it.
I think, like, what are the causes in your eyes that there shouldn't be any? It should everyone should be behind. I mean, there's something like the marriage equality that just passed. I can't. I guess the religious thing. I'm Jewish, so I don't. That stuff doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because I'm a human being and I don't care. But I'm saying I don't have religious reasons for feeling a certain way. And but I can see where there are other issues that some people are just like they're not all in on. There's like, maybe this, maybe that. Are there any issues that just to you feel I don't how is anyone against this? But yet there people are. But
Well, I mean, I always thought, I mean, this is years ago now, but I always thought like the environment was pretty neutral, and climate change, maybe specifically, is a little, it's less neutral, but the environment and sustainability and just like not ruining the earth, like that felt like a pretty simple thing that didn't have to feel divisive. And I think during my time working for Incubus, as we started posting on some of these things, that the band always stood for the environment, and starting to see people like, I don't know, saying things. I don't have to know what they were saying, but around something like not polluting the ocean, like how does that become a political thing? But it does. Um, I think though, like mental health is something that we do a lot of work around, and I feel like mental health should not be something that is divisive either. It's something anyone, whether it's them personally or their friend or someone in their family, like they know someone that has a mental health challenge or is depressed or whatever it might be, it impacts everybody. And so um, I'm sure there's nuance within the mental health space that can be divisive or be seen as political, but for the most part, I think mental health is one that should be applicable to anything. Um, and then you look at something like animal rights. There's a lot of um, extremes within that with certain organizations, but when it comes to like pet adoption, I think that everyone wants to save puppies. So I
yeah,
think that that's one that everyone can get
it's a
be
weird
passionate about.
animal rights is such a weird thing too. I mean, we eat animals as food.
Hmm.
It's just hard. There's so many things in. I think we're all hypocrites in a lot of ways, and that's okay.
100%.
I think it's because we
Hmm.
can't, even as we want to support causes. There's just we can't. It all can't be. It doesn't all come clean and neat into into a little box and say, all right, you believe this, and that's just how the world works. So
Yeah,
there's stuff that's
100%.
hypocritical about, and a lot of it has to do with I feel a certain way, but if it was faced to me, if I had to face this, right? Because a lot of stuff is just hypothetical. It's stuff that's around us. It hasn't touched us. It could even just be like the COVID. COVID's nothing, and then the people on their deathbed, oh, be careful, COVID's real. Or I don't know anyone who did this. Abortion could have been right. Like I feel a certain way, but hey, if I got someone pregnant, I might feel differently. Yeah, there's so much of that. How do you personally handle that? Because you're championing for certain things, but there's times when you're just going to be caught like it's hard to defend, and there's just things that it's just hard to defend.
I feel like it goes a little bit to what I was saying earlier about trying to be a good human, and that's in all forms. And as far as being compassionate, taking care of the environment, and taking care of yourself and your own mental health, and in ways that you can try and navigate the very like divisive nature of everything that's going on right now, and in the most thoughtful way possible. Because I mean, I drive a 2012 Prius, so it's okay for the environment and stuff. But I have an iPhone, and anyone who has an iPhone is like in some ways supporting like really bad labor, child labor, and where the minerals are being taken from and everything to make them. And it's just like you're inherently, no matter what you do, you're inherently probably supporting something that's not good, and you might be aware of it and you might not. And I think it's more about not shunning people for things, but it's when you become conscious of these things and are aware of them, do you take steps to do something about it or not, and maybe change your behaviors, and having compassion for others that might not be aware of certain things, and not jump, letting them know, but maybe not jumping down their throats either. Because I've never considered myself like a diehard activist. And when I got into this, it wasn't because I was like, someone that's hanging off a bridge to protest climate change or something. Like, that was never who I was. But I care about these things, and I do want to do my part. And I think that that's kind of how I feel a lot of people are, and kind of where they're coming from as well.
Talk about blurred lines. Like, what makes someone a good person or a bad person? That's hard to define. The things that we used to think black and white are just like, Luke Bryan sings, "I believe most people are good." I unfortunately, I don't know. I think it's at 50-50 at best. But you could be you can not say someone's really a good person. They don't have to be a bad person, right? There's sort of the neutral side where people just exist, and that's okay. If you just want to go through your life and you want to exist and you don't want to help, but you don't harm, I think that's okay. I'd be disappointed for people like that. It disappoints me, people lately, especially now, because we know more about. It used to be we didn't know. Now we know everything about everyone, and everyone's really empowered to speak how they feel, and that amplifies on both sides. I think I've probably been annoying in some of the things that I want to yell out and have people know and support. But it's it's tough to see the world and people who just don't care about human decency and common courtesy, and that's tough to do. I think I don't know that it's more than 50-50. Then that's a bad way to feel, but it's true. I mean, it's just how I feel, and that doesn't mean there's a lot of bad people walking around, but it's just it's not that hard to help and to do good, and it feels like it's just as much energy to go the other way. Do you think that that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. And I think that there's this sort of team sports mentality. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, I don't like to just make Trump out to be the boogeyman, but I think that when he took office, it amplified a lot of this stuff, where it became very normal to just, because on both sides, honestly. And if you saw something that went against what you stand for, whatever side you're on, I think people kind of get off on being rude to people on the other side, because it's like they think it's helping their team win or something. And so instead of having compassion and doing things that I'm sure go against the better nature of who they are and who they want to be as a person, that's kind of going back to what I was saying about being immature and just being nasty to people. Like, I just don't think that's a winning solution at all, for whatever side you're on. But it's like this idea that you've got to beat your opponent or something. And it's kind of scary, to be honest, just in terms of like where the world's going, and if that sort of polarity of left and right, or however you want to define it, comes to a point where it just feels like it's a battle and someone's got to win versus trying to find common ground. It doesn't feel like a positive outcome is what's gonna occur.
So I think it was bad. I think overall it's bad when you talk about talk about Trump putting stuff out there, saying what's on your mind. I also think it's good because we now know certain things. Do you prefer to know exactly how people think, if that's going to be, or is there value in just walking around ignorance is bliss?
Well, no, I mean, I would rather have people be informed, and I think that's what I mean. Even though I think Trump was a horrible liar, but I think at least having him so often just stream of consciousness, saying what was on his mind, he was probably the most open book of a president we've ever had. And in instances, many instances, that was definitely not a good thing. I feel like, especially with what he would do on Twitter when it comes to foreign policy and things. But
Yeah,
in
but
other
what's the
ways,
lie and what's not also became like we're arguing what water is wet. Like that's the other thing that
for
thing.
sure, for sure. Yeah, like does 2 + 2 = 4 or not? But yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I also think it's what maybe some people are gullible. I don't know, but it's also what drew people to him was just the idea that they thought they were getting someone that was going to be honest and not just be part of like the system and a normal sort of politician and spinning things. And well, I think there's plenty of spin with Trump, but just unfiltered in a way, and giving information. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think people should be informed, and then it's just a matter of people actually choose to be informed or not. Might be more of the problem moving forward.
Is it what my feeling is it's not okay to be um just not something. You have to be anti, right? Like not it's not okay to just not be racist. You have to be anti-racism and speak up. Is that something that you can kind of push out into the world to talk about and be loud about, or just hey, we support something? Where do you stand on that?
I mean, I think calling out something that is hateful and you see is blatantly wrong, I think it's okay to do that. But I also think, I mean, not to sound cheesy, but the classic "be the change you want to see in the world." I think that idea of being a leader and leading by example is really important and a good one because um, you got to practice what you preach, and I think if people can see you being that example, I think that's maybe more beneficial than just trying to be anti something. You're showing what you're pro, and also the whole vote with your dollar and the things that you do support and you do buy and purchase, like making sure that that's stuff that you care about as well. I think that's probably the best path, but
Yeah,
who knows.
I'm a golden rule kind of guy. I'm for the greater good, always for the greater good. I vote that way. I just my mindset is that way. It's a weird sort of combination of for me because I'm a pretty selfish person. I'm very selfish with my time and all of that. But overall, I just want what's best for everyone, and that's in the broader sense. But I think the average person doesn't care. Like, what do I care about the environment? I'm not going to be around. I don't have any kids. What How do we get people to see? Well, can you get people? I mean, is that just who people are? I mean, how do you get people to be for a cause that really, at the end of the day, it doesn't involve them? It's sort of like that. I forget. Was it what was the one they came for me and then they came, or first they came
Hmm.
for them and I didn't say anything? That sort of thing.
I don't know how you get people to care. I think that there's a number of ways that you could have your own personal epiphany or something around seeing things in a way that you never saw before that could change your life, and that could be through, I don't know, a family member dying of cancer or something tragic that happens that just has you look at life in a different way and opens up how much compassion you have or what have you. It's also where I know you said you had never done drugs, but it's where psychedelics, I think, have a really important, or I should say, have a really big opportunity in the world because psychedelics are thought of, to a lot of people. And a big part of what we do is try and destigmatize them because these are ancient um, uh, medicines really that have been used in different cultures for thousands of years. And I only bring this up because it's sort of, to me, almost can be a shortcut to, instead of having to go through some sort of tragedy, but to have a major perspective shift in a death of your ego and all these things. That's more of what we are working on around psychedelics, is the responsible use of them and things like psychedelic therapy. They're not a silver bullet. They don't work for everybody, but they work for a lot of people as far as having that major perspective shift. And to me, I really believe in consciousness and up and trying to up level people's consciousness at the end of the day. And I think anything that is a way to do that is ultimately what's needed, is more consciousness and more awareness in the world. And hopefully people whether it's something that really catapults their consciousness, or if it's something more gradual over time that brings them to that awareness. Hopefully, things like psychedelics and will help that. Otherwise, I think it'll be more through something terrible like a World War III or something that really changes a lot of people. And I hope it doesn't. I hope that's not what it is.
We didn't already just go through World War III. Sometimes it feels
we
like
might be already in it. Who knows?
It's happening now. Give me a male artist and a female artist group that you would love to join Propeller.
I thought you were going to say that who I would love to join their band.
Wow.
That's really tough. Okay, this is fresh on my mind because I watched the Kendrick Lamar new Amazon live concert from Paris last night, and it blew me away. Kendrick is phenomenal, and so as far as a male artist, Kendrick would be top of my list, at least today. He's phenomenal. He's he is active, and I just think like he'd be an unbelievable artist to work with. He's a real artist as well. Like you don't see that in artist shows as much anymore, and it just was really, really fantastic. As far as a female artist, first one that came to my mind was Phoebe Bridgers. We've done a small thing with Phoebe, and it went very well, but it was just around her Red Rocks show, and she just she champions causes on her own, and again going back to authentic. She's an authentic artist with a really engaged following, and so Phoebe would be a big one for us.
Give me an experience that would make Brandon jump through hoops to try and win on Propeller.
We've done some of them, to be honest, but I think the one we did last year with Bonnaroo was sending 4 people to go to Bonnaroo in the tour bus. So they all, they're all friends. We flew them all out. They got to have a tour bus. They had VIP passes, but we created a whole special package that was only for these winners with the festival. And we call it the Rue Works Royalty Package. And I'm a big fan of Bonnaroo, so that's why this one comes to mind. And they had we had a golf cart chauffeur for them, so we were taking them around the festival.
What did they have to do? Just give us some examples.
So with Bonnaroo, there's Bonnaroo Works Fund is their nonprofit, and then they have Planet Roo, which is like their nonprofit village, which has about 30 different nonprofit organizations that are a part of it, from Oxfam to the Reform Alliance to Right Love and Arms and Headcount. And so there was all kinds of different actions from these different groups, and it could be anything from signing petitions to watching awareness videos to registering to vote. And they only had to do one thing, to enter. But this person that won, I believe, did quite a bit. You never have to donate, but a lot of people do donate. And so, again, the more you're doing, the more you can increase your chances. And ultimately, it's picked at random, but you can certainly help your chances by getting a lot of entries through your engagement.
If you could wipe one issue out, what do you do? Someone had this on Twitter, like, what disease would you get rid of? It doesn't have to be a disease, but if you could wipe one issue, I guess more that that you guys are doing activism for. So I'm not like, hey, let's get rid of cancer, but.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this sounds silly, but I think I would probably go more of the mental health angle. And going back to what I was saying earlier, I feel like up-leveling consciousness, and I think the more we can eradicate people's depression and mental health issues, and the more people can be who they are and realize more of their potential. And I think a lot of these, like, people might be shitty because they're depressed themselves. And so, if we can eradicate, or at least that might be impossible, but if we can have people have solutions when they are having mental health challenges, I think that will be a great starting place for then the rest of these issues to start being able to change more quickly.
Yeah, the entertainment world lost another good person yesterday. Stephen Boss of the Ellen Show died by suicide. We don't really know a lot of the details. It's pretty shocking. I didn't know him well, but from what I read, there wasn't who knows? And you never know. And sometimes you'll never know. I champion for mental health with Same Here, and I got some stuff scrolling at the bottom for the people who do know me. It's a big thing for me. I think it would solve a lot of problems. It'd make the world a better place. And we never do enough to do it. I think that is something that we can, I think that's more attainable than almost anything. We talk cancer and environment. I think mental health is just something it's attainable. It's achievable. Not ending, depression and all this, but I think it is. So I think that's a great answer. Might even be the answer I give if I was asked that question. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everyone gets. You spend 24 hours with anyone in the world. They have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose and what would you guys do?
Wow. Some of my heroes are not alive. So I'm trying to think who's alive that I'd want to spend time with. I don't know. I mean, I think that Paul McCartney would probably be up there just because, I mean, there aren't many living people that have had the experiences that he's had, and he's an artist and just done so much in his life that I've never met Paul. And I think to just get to pick his brain for a bit. I mean, it's one of those people, like, what can you ask him that he hasn't been asked 1,000 times? But I think he'd be a really interesting guy to spend some time with.
Yeah. I mean, some people probably don't even realize or think about that he was a Beatle.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Like, that's a whole nother story and world. I mean, he's crafted such a life for himself, and even if he never was in the Beatles, although obviously that springboards and there's reason for it. I don't know if he's ever been chosen. So that's a great 261 episodes. I got to go and look back.
That's surprising.
Yeah, I had a list for it. He might have. It's possible. I got to go look back.
Well, as far as what we do, I think this would be similar for most people. Actually, it depends. But Paul McCartney, I'd say I'd want to smoke a joint. That would probably be what we do together. I'm curious though, is there someone that rises to the top for the answers commonly? Like,
I think Obama is probably number one. We get a
good one.
We get a good amount of Trump, and I think it's the people who want to meet with Trump are kind of the people who don't like him. It's like one of those, hey, what the heck? Somebody wanted to meet with Putin. We've had some pretty, Michael Jordan and, the standard actors. It's a lot of it depends on who. I think it changes for me a little bit, but yeah, Obama is definitely up there.
That's a good one.
Ryan Reynolds would be cool to hang out with, and my favorite actor, Jason Bateman. There's been some great answers, and I hope to get enough influence and power and money to make it happen for everyone. We're going to have this huge party. I don't know when it's going to be or what it's going to be. I will tell you that I myself and Ticket Time Machine both stand for a lot of what you and Propeller stand for, and I hope to find ways to elevate that, and as I have a bigger platform to make much more noise. So we're on board with what you're doing, and I think it's great. You can't please everyone, so there's going to be a lot of people who they're not going to be for what you're doing.
Yeah,
I think you can lure them in a little bit on the entertainment side. I think, and that's fine. Right, that's fine. You just never know when someone's going to click, and then it's also the power of social media. Like, if some person sees that you did this, everyone else has an opportunity to see it, and that's sort of what we're trying to do. So check out propeller.la on Instagram, on Twitter. Sign up. It's free to sign up. Start educating yourself. Start helping. Donate if you can, and maybe we'll see you at one of these winners at the next Bonnaroo giveaway or whatever festival that might be.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to chat. We have guests next week, but do something good this weekend for the world, for other people, and have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.